we're going to move to a new porch. Dr. Georges Benjamin and Lorrie McNeill, may we turn to your porch, which might also be back in the Maryland area, if I'm right, although it's okay to be in undisclosed locations since we're coming to your virtual porch. But as part of our COVID-19 work, we had this opportunity to work so closely with the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research at FDA and dig into what, don't tell Gina and the Evidence Accelerator folks, but the Vaccine Confidence Project might have been one of my favorite projects of 2020. So Dr. Benjamin and Lorrie McNeill, may we join your porch?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me start maybe and just talk about this project. So this was a really neat project. And, the intent of the Vaccine Confidence Project was to help the FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, of course, everybody knows that CBER, to really understand public perceptions about authorized, approved COVID-19 vaccines, to identify what information and key audiences wanted to know as we try to build vaccine confidence, and create messages that provide that information. We did a fairly rigorous research process that included a landscape analysis, some listening sessions, and message development and testing. And we focused it really on two audiences. The communities traditionally underrepresented, so African American, Black, Hispanic, Latinx, and indigenous communities. But also we focused a little differently than a lot of the other folks that did this kind of work and looked at frontline workers in the service, retail, and healthcare settings, which I think in many ways made our work relatively unique to a lot of the groups that were doing this kind of work. And of course, some of the key takeaways was the importance of the messenger. Of course, we discovered that, like many other folks, but that the local physician, your doctor, nurse, or pharmacist were among the most trusted messengers. The fact that as we looked at these messages, we were able to share them broadly for use in a range of one-on-one communications, as well as incorporating the COVID-19 immunization education campaigns that other groups had. So that I know that folks like the Ad Council, the CDC, the COVID Collaborative, other groups that were looking at messaging were able to pick up some of the lessons that we learned. And Susan was able to get around to groups and present in a range of national venues, including the Press Club, the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, just an example of some of those. And you can see that's a multi-sectorial opportunity to present our findings. And we had a fair amount of our work also highlighted in the media. So, groups such as Medscape also were able to see those messages. And I think those messages were very important because they, some of those top performing messages were things that, for example, the fact that the FDA was being very public about the vaccines, the messages around safe and efficacy, and the fact that these vaccines have been rigorously tested. As you know, some of the things that we discovered was the fact that people were concerned about both safety and efficacy. And of course, how can you do this so fast? And so we were able to address those very specifically with people. And also kind of get a sense on the fact that these weren't political folks. These were scientists, career public health officials that were very much involved in the work. And I thought these kinds of messages that you see here were very, very important because people wanted to know, how can you do it so quickly? And also point out the fact that, look, this builds on 10 years of work, at least in the, our tax dollars at work, the investment that we've made in societal research, and the work that FDA has learned for many years of vaccine work on how we could do this as efficiently as we were able to do that. So I think that this was a good project. And I'd love to hear, Lorrie, what some of the thoughts you folks had about the this project. And, as you know, we always think of ourselves as kind of neutral conveners, as a trusted convener. how does this help the FDA?
Well, thank you for that summary. I think, we would certainly agree. This, to me, was not just a good project. It was a great project. The task that we asked Reagan-Udall to take on was Herculean. The amount of time that we had in order to get this done, to try to get it before the vaccines were authorized so that we would have clear messaging for once the vaccines became available, was relatively short from the time that the project started to when the final report was done. The fact that Reagan-Udall got all of these listening sessions done and the message testing done was just phenomenal. As we all know, the vaccine hesitancy issue is not new, but it was certainly exacerbated during the last year plus because of the perceptions that vaccines, the development process was being rushed and that corners were being cut. And so to understand the concerns in communities and to go to the communities where they are, which the project was able to do, was incredibly helpful in determining what those messages were, or should be, excuse me. And also, I think really, underscored what we already knew, that transparency was going to be really key in helping build confidence in these vaccines.
Well, that's good. And how have you kind of used the findings? What have you done in from that perspective? Once we gave you that information, what did you do with it?
Well, I think, it's been kind of a two-pronged approach. As you noted, Susan has done a tremendous job of getting the word out about this report. And what we've done is take those messages and weave them into all of our public communications. We've shared the report across the agency with all of the offices that do stakeholder outreach, including the Office of Minority Health and Health Equity, and the Office of Women's Health, the Office of External Affairs, and the stakeholder engagement staff. We've also shared it with our colleagues across HHS. Leanne came and did a presentation to our vaccine communicators group that meets monthly. And we shared the report and the findings there too. And so not only is FDA able to use this messaging, our sister public health agencies are also able to take advantage.
Well, that's good to do. So what do we carry forward from this? What should we do done differently?
I don't know that I could think of anything offhand about what we should have done differently. I think again, being able to complete this project, in the time that we did and reach the communities that you all were able to reach was so important for us to gain that understanding. I think, going back perhaps, in the future and revisiting those groups and see how effective those messages were, I think would be a great follow-on project.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that, because, as you know, we're going through a different time now. We're going to an area where we kind of have building vaccine confidence is going to be a little more difficult for the populations we have out there. And I guess the question is, what do we do next to do that? So we probably should talk with you more about that kind of thing. And of course, now we're also going to, as of today, hopefully approve vaccinating children. You've done your part, and hopefully the ACIP will do his today. And then the question is, now we're bringing younger people into this equation. What do we do with that? And of course, we did not look at that specifically as part of our work. So I think that's another area where, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's an interesting area as well.
I think that's an excellent point. Obviously, we focused on adults and frontline workers, who are responsible for being caregivers in their families. I think the next potential step could be parents, and making sure that they are confident and comfortable in getting their children vaccinated. As you noted, CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices meets today to talk about the most recent authorization from Monday for 12 through 15-year-olds. And I think then the next step will be, children under 12 years of age. And so, how are we, going to make sure that parents do feel comfortable, that they are confident that the vaccines will be safe and effective for their children, and that, kids get vaccinated in order to help us return to a more normal, living, I guess.
No, absolutely. What are some of the other opportunities? That's one opportunity for future collaboration. What are some of the others? Do you have any others that you can think of?
Oh boy. Vaccines certainly present a wealth of opportunities. I think, building vaccine confidence beyond just COVID-19 vaccines is really important. As we've seen in recent years where we've had, lower vaccination rates or hesitancy in populations, we've had outbreaks. Measles is a great example, from a few years ago. And so I think, continuing to focus on this and address misinformation that's out there about vaccines and their safe and effective use will be, I think, a project that we could, continue to do going forward.
And I think, of course, from my perspective, just thinking more broadly about vaccines, I think there's also an opportunity for us to build broader vaccine confidence around the whole suite of vaccines that we have, and that the FDA, of course, has jurisdiction. Any thoughts about that?
No, I completely agree. I think, this is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And it's a very unique situation given how rapidly the vaccines were studied and made available. I think, folks think more traditionally that it takes years and years to develop vaccines, and therefore those vaccines may be more safe than the COVID vaccines. People are concerned about long-term effects. And that really does extend beyond COVID from some of the information that we get from consumers and through research that, educated folks who have not seen vaccine preventable diseases in their lifetime really wonder what the utility is of some vaccines. And so I think we need to do a very good job, or a better job, of educating the public about the importance and try to get at, why are they hesitant about getting them.
Any final thoughts that you have about our partnership that you want to bring up?
Well, I would just say it was a tremendous collaboration. We certainly could not have done this without the tremendous expertise and work by the folks at Reagan-Udall. As I said earlier, to have done this so quickly and to have produced such a high quality report is remarkable. And we look forward to continuing this work with you all going forward.
Lorrie, let me thank you very, very much for your candor. And Susan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Georges, and thank you, Lorrie. Georges, as you and Lorrie were talking, it reminded me of one of the real strengths of the foundation is because we have folks like you and Adrian, who we've already heard from, and then we'll hear from Sally and Kay, the strength of our board in helping us bring together additional just resources and insights. So I have to say thank you to you and everyone on our board for the work that you do. And Lorrie and Georges, thank you again for joining us. I particularly resonated to the dog that joined us for our porch conversation in just helping us all understand the realities of our new speaking environment. So yes, thank you.
He came and got on my porch, so.
It's all right. Thank you.